Good day to one and all. Here we are, first and final pod with Shivu Brody coming out of Melbourne CBD still this autumn. Wonderful to be with you. We're having the best time. I just want to say from the get go, this has been an amazing journey so far. We're getting beautiful, beautiful feedback and critique as well. And I think we're adding something to the conversation. We're adding something to the dialogue. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep adding. And we're going to be on this journey for the long run. There's many more topics to come. We will have more guests as we go. But this is very much driven by myself. And I'm going to be the content driver here. We're looking for an Aussie, Indian perspective. And we're going to add substance and a little bit of frills and thrills as we go along. I just want to get started and say, yes, anything that is discussed here, this is for entertainment purposes only, not to be construed as financial advice. I do not know you. I do not know your specific situation. I cannot recommend something to you in this juncture. And anything we mention for nutrition or health and wellness as well. We're not looking to give you specific or relevant advice in that area. We're just talking in general layman's terms for entertainment purposes. Wonderful. Now that that's out the way, we can get into it. This is not a drill. It's an emergency. Things are popping off in the geopolitical landscape. Bunker buses have been sent. A ceasefire is in place, tentatively at least. What can we do? Where are we at in Asia Pacific? Do we need to get involved? Can we just watch through the fingers in our hands? Can we hide away like an emu? All these things need to be considered. And what I'll say is, good on those who felt that they needed to take an action, because you can't just sit in a stalemate. A stalemate is something that will linger for generations. It has already. And at some point, if you feel that there's a pressing and an urgent need to do something, then at least have the courage to go out and do something with real fortitude, and that can have like an impact for not just today or tomorrow or the next few weeks, but hopefully for a few years, for a decade or two. This is why you do intelligence gathering. This is why you spend time developing assets, human assets. And we may never know the feeling that Israel would have, to have someone who's, incessantly calling you out, incessantly saying that, hey, you don't belong here, and we're going to try and remove you from that region. That is an anxiety that they would live with, that we may never truly understand. So I do give credit where it's due, and if they felt that was the correct move militarily and politically, they've at least gone ahead and taken the moves that they need to and that they're able to, and we'll see where the chips fall. With that being said, there is other news at hand too. I do want to spend a moment doing a small little, I guess, educational piece around Russia, India, China. Just touch upon what I believe that their core thinking is, the way that they see the world. Touch upon and I guess enlighten those about precisely what it is that they're trying to achieve and the means of how they go about that. So we will go ahead and get started with that. So I guess starting with Russia. Now, Russia has got a proud history. This is an ancient people. There are people who, obviously, people of the Rus. They did come from Scandinavia originally. They are related to those who live in Sweden and Finland and Norway, at least by blood. But their approach to life is very different. Russians are very hardened people. Their core character trait is that of someone who is, a very practical minded, very tough. There's an old saying, when the USSR was under siege from the Nazis back in the day, they that they would be happy and able to eat anything and everything to survive. They would eat grass and drink the mud if they had to, and they deserve credit. The Russians are extremely tough people. They're definitely no frills um, or superficial nature about them. And keep in mind, they're the only army. The Red Army was the only army that ever that defeated the Nazis in battle. So they deserve credit. Who knows what would have happened if the Nazis had advanced to Moscow and were able to overtake them there. They stood firm. They were under siege. They were eating dirt off the floor, but through the sheer willpower and the sheer grittiness in their national character, they pulled through. And they don't get enough credit for that. They certainly, history is written by the winners, and America in Hollywood has always painted the Russian as the villain, but that's more remnants of the Cold War and a personal issue between America and Russia. But the Russian is certainly not the villain. They are a tough and very proud and good people, and they've done what they needed to. And we all need to tip our hats to them, because who knows? I mean, the Reich may still have survived beyond that if the Red Army didn't stop them there in Moscow. And the Germans were right there. They were right. They could see Moscow through their binoculars. They were at the doorstep. But the Russians pulled through. They pulled through. They stood firm, and I certainly am one to salute them. Now, with Russia and India, there's a wonderful, wonderful relationship there. It's not just an ally. It's not just simply, a fair weather friend. It's a brotherhood. It's a kinship. It's more than just a casual relationship. This is something that for generations, India and Russia will be linked together. And it all stems really from what happened in 1971. So for those who don't know, back in the day, there was a bit of tension with East and West Pakistan, and India had got involved to try and go ahead and settle tensions there in what would become Bangladesh. But they were under threat. Nixon and Margaret Thatcher had said, "Oh, look, we don't want India to go ahead and get involved in these things. They're flexing their muscle, and this is geopolitically quite tense." So they had sent battleships and frigates and submarines over to the Bay of Bengal. Now, having got wind of this, the Russian, or at the time the Soviets said, "Hey, we just can't let something like this happen. This could really escalate. This could really go left." So they went ahead and, through whatever machinations they had, they had sonar and radar, and they went ahead and were able to beat the Americans and the British to the Bay of Bengal. And then when the Americans looked up and they saw Soviet ships waiting for them, they backed off. They said, "No, we don't want this kind of smoke." Because say what you want about a Russian, but a fight with a Russian is a real fight, and you will get a bloody nose. And India remembers that. India remembers that. Who knows what could have happened? I mean, we could have seen a tense situation. We could have seen a coup d'etat. We could have seen India really become crippled there. I'm not saying that America or Britain were going to declare war on them on that day, but they were certainly going to cause a fuss there in the Bay of Bengal. You don't send warships over to say hello. You send warships over to send a message, and an intimidating message at that. And so India remembers. India recalls that, and they certainly have a collective memory of the Russians are our friends. The Russians are more than a friend. The Russia is a brother, a bhai, as they say in Hindi. So I will say that, and I think that's also partly why when the Russia-Ukraine special military operation kicked off in 2022, we didn't see India say, "Hey, we're being neutral, or we're not going to take sides here." They actually did come up with a plan to purchase the discounted oil from Russia that much of the world had shunned. And ironically enough, all of the oil that India purchases from Russia, it's refined there in India, and it's sold back to Europe and sold back to much of the world, even with two countries that, on paper at least, aren't supposed to or aren't willing to buy from Russia. So yeah, it's quite an interesting element that's occurred there, and that purchasing of oil from Russia is quite key. It's helped keep the economy afloat. The economy is not booming; it's not doing tremendously because of sanctions imposed on them by the Western world. But at least they can get by with that help of having some of their oil sold there in the market. And with China and Russia, they obviously they have a large shared border, and for most of the last century, Russia has been much more powerful than China. But I think China has reached a point where they are able to flex their muscles and stand out and puff their chests a little bit. And Russia and China are seen as equals now, and they definitely collaborate and align themselves geopolitically when it does come to G7 time or any time that the Security Councils are called. They do have some kind of arrangement or some kind of ongoing understanding. It's not that the border tensions that they had are over; they're still at hand, but they're just something that is in the back burner for this moment. China's policy has always been interesting. They've always said, like, we're going to put a lot of our GDP percentage into growing the military, but we're certainly not looking to have any kind of military activity. We don't want to get involved in any kind of war because we are in growth mode. And it is quite a logical, and I have to say, like, quite an intelligent route that they've taken. They haven't tried to be too involved in external affairs. But then when it comes to Taiwan, then they get rabid. Then they get very feisty. They get very tense and uptight when Taiwan topic comes. And for good reason too. Taiwan is in some ways the unfinished business that the Communist Party of China has always had, and they will always have that touchiness and that little bit of a chip on their shoulder and contempt when it comes to Taiwan. They feel like, even though that they were the ones who were able to have the power and take control of the mainland, the Han mainland of Beijing, that the Taiwanese still are a remnant of what was in the past, and that they have taken a part of China in the islands of Taiwan that should be tied with China, mainland China, and they see it as an affront to them. So they'll never settle until there's some kind of final conflict or some kind of final rendering there, because it really is an affront. It's really a slap to their face that Taiwan is a developed country, that they've got quite good businesses there. I mean, everyone knows TSMC, they're leaders in semiconductor chips. NVIDIA and AMD, a lot of the leadership there are from Taiwan, including Jensen Huang. So yes, I think that will certainly be something that will be litigated in the upcoming future. China have a singular focus, the One China policy. They've been able to firstly annex Tibet and keep Tibet now for maybe 1 to 2 generations. Tibet was never a part of China. In ancient times, Tibet was actually the people of Tibet had actually gone to Beijing and sacked Beijing and taken control of Beijing themselves. The Great Wall of China was built to actually stave off the Tibetans and the Mongols and other people who were coming to sack Beijing. Beijing was not powerful back in the day. They were getting sacked. They were getting plundered and looted. But now the tables have turned, and I guess this is modern day reverse plundering and looting, and it's just rewriting of history. There was no time in history when Tibet was part of the Han Chinese collective. They were their own distinct people. They had a humanist culture. They were very much strong into their Buddhism, and they were a spiritual home for Dharma. It was really Tibet, India, and Sri Lanka that was the home of Buddhism in some way. That was where um, I guess the sheer uh, enthusiasm for Buddhist teaching and for Buddhist philosophy really took off in Tibet and Sri Lanka, and then um, proceeded to Southeast Asia in Siam, which is now Thailand, and Cambodia and Vietnam. So yeah, they are cultural brothers. Tibet is more culturally aligned with India, where I've met some of those people there in Dharamshala or Manali who are from Tibet. They're proudly Tibetan, and uh, they kind of have a a light desperation to return to their homeland, but they know that the CCP, as long as they're in power, it's just never going to be a real chance for them. Uh, This is, as more time passes, Tibet will be culturally drained. It'll be culturally filtered and erased, and the Han Chinese will occupy that area. And real Tibetan culture, the native Tibetan culture that was there for 3-4 thousand years, that will slowly become just a remnant of history. And I think uh, we need to litigate that at some point in the future. Tibet should be free. Instead of people chanting for other parts of the world to be free, give Tibet a thought. I mean, these are awesome and good people. They have a beautiful culture. They're a very peace-loving and very spiritually advanced people. They're very humble, very quiet, and quite evolved um, in their philosophy and thinking. And I do hope that one day that they can reside in their homeland freely as Tibetans, not as as Chinese subjects um, uh, or as refugees in India. They do get a lot of love in India. They are welcome, and they're very, very much a part of the immense fabric that makes up modern day Bharat. But everyone should have their homeland, and it is sad that what's happened to them. And I will go out and say, like, free Tibet, free Tibet. Let them have their day. I mean, if we can say free Palestine, we can certainly say free Tibet. It's in some ways a far more valid and noble case for them. And when it comes to Taiwan, I mean, Taiwan is such a modern and and capable place. I mean, uh, they have been practicing and executing drills and game planning and war planning for years and years, and uh, rest assured that they will know what to do when inevitably um, mainland China does come for them. I mean, this is something that they're not naive to. They're certainly not deluding themselves and saying, "Oh, well, as long as China is just happy with their economic growth, they won't bother about us." They have quite good instincts in terms of the level of threat facing them, and they've taken the steps to go ahead and prepare accordingly and make the right alliances and align themselves with other powers that can help them. And it'll certainly be interesting to see how that plays out in the coming years. China does have an internal clock. They don't want this thing to run out for a lifetime, and they feel that as long as their military is in a good position and the economy is all right, and there is some debate about what is the actual reality of the Chinese economy at this moment, because we are seeing some numbers indicating that the economy is not what it was 5 to 10 years ago, and that there are ghost cities, these infamous ghost cities where they've developed and actually built quite lovely modern cities that just aren't filled in with any people, which is a sign of I guess troubled economic realities. So that's what we will see. Taiwan's ready, and those who are standing up for, I guess, freedom and for sovereignty, I think should really sympathize with the state of Taiwan. Um, sure, they lost the war with the Communist Party of China. They had to flee. They had to flee, and they forfeited, I guess, their sovereignty over their homeland. But they've built up a new homeland, and uh, you know, they should have the dignity to go ahead and have their own place to really prosper and to live out their lives. It's not just that the Communist Party can say, "Oh, there's people with Chinese blood there. We must go ahead and annex it and make it part of one China policy." I feel like that's way too strong. It's out of hand, and it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, so those are my thoughts there on Taiwan and China. I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen, but sympathize with the people of Taiwan. They live with an imminent threat daily, but they've still gone ahead and built themselves up, built a beautiful economy, and they've contributed greatly in terms of STEM field and technology. And yeah, sympathize with them and let them have their day. India has really positioned themselves super fascinatingly to me. They're not aligning with too many people. They're not giving smiling handshakes and saying, "Yep, we're allies, we're best buddies." They are being very realpolitik about it. They're being very pragmatic. It's very much, scratch your back, scratch my back, and it's certainly. It's very distinctive. They're actually showing their own strength in that way. They didn't bow to the pressure of the European Union when it came to accepting and buying Russian oil in 2022. And they've gone ahead and quietly positioned themselves nicely. The economy, look, there's still a lot of bureaucracy there. It is difficult. Nobody's saying it's easy to enter as a business and a large corporation into India. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of filing that needs to happen, and a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot. But we're seeing their capability. Foxconn have confirmed they're going to be making the iPhone going forward in India. It's going to be a thing, and this is arguably one of the top consumer goods in the world. The iPhone has got a legendary customer base. I personally don't like it. I will never switch over to iPhone for my own reasons. I feel it doesn't sit in the hand right. I feel like there's something with the font that doesn't jibe well with me. And I just love Android. I love the freedom that Android gives you in terms of the open source apps that are there, and just the more modern and stylish look that it gives. But iPhone coming to India is a big win. And I think also India has some advantage in terms of, if you've ever been to India or met any people directly from India, there's such a hunger to do well. There's such an inner motivation that they have, that if you ever talk to one of them, you feel like, hey, I'm not on my game. I'm not doing enough in life. They're studying a lot. They're trying to learn new skills. Like the reason why Indians are dominating the STEM fields and doing so well in software especially is they just have such a sound application of, okay, I'm all right at maths. I will go ahead and learn this language and I'll play around with it, and I'll become acclimated as a coder and as someone who is a developer and ultimately software engineer. They have kind of seen a need in the world market, and they said, hey, we can fill that. And to their credit, they've taken over that field exponentially. If you've ever been to Silicon Valley, there's an old joke that the regional language of Silicon Valley is Hindi, or Bangalorean Canada, which is quite interesting. They've filled that position quite well. They haven't sat there and said, oh, okay, we're just going to be a one-trick pony and just do outsourcing or anything. They're actually taking prime creme de la creme jobs in that field, and they're doing super well with it, because even if they are moving overseas and earning salaries in a different country, they're remitting so much of it back home that it does play a big part in the development of their homeland. Ultimately, any dollar sent back to India, that's going to vendors and suppliers and businesses all around India as well. That's going to be consumed there. So, although you would prefer to have those dollars earned in that country and spent in that country, this is the next best thing. And we will talk more about this topic soon. I think that we've at least given ourselves a good warm opener here in the key players of the Asia Pacific region, and we'll carry on and add to it as we go. But this is a good opener and a good baseline for anyone to get some kind of acumen in this area. It's all about Russia. It's all about China. It's all about India, and obviously, I think the major key player, because we are part of the Western world and we have the English as the main language. I think Australia will be the leader of the Asia Pacific region in the future. I think it's up to us. We have all the base elements needed here. We just need to have the leadership and collective goals aligned, and we can go ahead and become that leader. We are in an interesting phase. We're seeing a paradigm shift away from American leadership. We saw that when countries were flirting with leaving the greenback US dollar as the currency of trades, and there were many ideas being flipped around. A BRICS dollar was thought of. The Saudis were thinking of creating some kind of Middle East fiat currency. So these are conversations that would have been unheard of even 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and we're uniquely placed. Australia will certainly be a major player in this new paradigm shifts for Asia Pacific leadership. But yeah, it's interesting to think about the big three there, and we will carry on and talk some more. So that wraps it up for now. Thank you all, and keep enjoying wherever you are. Keep enjoying what you're doing. Go forth with full energy. Take your vitamins. Believe in yourself. I'm not saying you should believe in God or anything, but I'll just say believe in yourself at least. And let's carry on. Thanks kindly.